Uh, we're going to try to make like a sort of more complex examples. Let's try and say we have a wish list or something that I want to implement, or like a to-do list, or like a list of stuff that I can add and delete from. You know what I mean? I have a button to add. So the way you should imagine your application, so the way I wrote it, or there is actually a really good like called thinking in React. So this is really good. You should go through it, honestly. But this is so whenever you, as we said before, like whenever you can build like a project in the traditional way, you just see it as a page, and you just write HTML, and you go to JavaScript, and you start like doing random stuff. Add event listener, remove event listener, click here, click there, do fetch, do inner HTML. It's fine, but the more like the project grow, the more we need structure. The more we have developers, we need all the developers to like have the same way of working. And React is really good at this. So other developers they hate inner HTML, other developers they like it and stuff. But whenever we have React, it's like one standard way of thinking, one standard way of doing work, and this is really important because one of the things that really like bother me at least in working with people is like everybody has his own background. This is really good to have your own background, and we do stuff differently. But it started to become really like a sort of a clash in between people. How we do this, how we do that. There's a clash even between frameworks. Some people they don't like React, some people they React. But either ways, you like it or not, when you adopt React, you'll have one way of doing stuff, which is really good. Whenever you read code written by someone else, you expect it to be the React way, and it's using component and the render. He's not using a strange library with his own way of no, which is and this is really important and good. We can have a standard. And usually the way you build React is to go and actually draw lines or border around your component and like decompose the layout like we did with the YouTube example. If I want to build this,
recording?
Yeah. I am. Come on, keynote, go. No, I don't want this. This is quite stupid. See, Mac, you cannot even open something.
Not listen.
What?
Not listen.
Yeah, it's not listening to me. Even when you spend 25,000 to buy it, but it doesn't listen. Quite strange.
Okay, it doesn't matter. Everybody, I think.
But you saw it before.
Yeah.
So the way we build it is like we sketch and we say, okay, I can see that way I have a header, I have a video, I have something. And you do the same here. So if you have an app like this that lists stock prices and you can search, you go and you say, oh, I have a component here which is header. I have a list. I'm not sure if they provide another picture. No, but you can name them. So you can say here that filterable product table in orange, search bar, blue, product table, and after that product category row, and product row, which is each row. Make sense?
Does these like inside are also like a component inside component?
Technically, you want the item to be inside the list.
Yeah.
The item should not live outside of the
Yeah.
list. Technically.
Yes.
So it's just common sense. If this should be next to this.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense to actually put the header inside the list here, next to the price.
Yeah.
So it's common sense. So React should not enforce how you communicate. Like the relationship between like your component, it's not defined by React, it's defined by you.
Okay.
And you should use it the way you like. But this is just an overview. So the way you build components in React is like you. So if for example you say, I wanted to show you a design from my company, but I don't think that's allowed. But anyways, you have like if you want to design this page, you say, it's a header or Facebook or something. It's a header. It's the post, as we discussed before.
Yeah.
So that's the way you write, and you start building components, really small components. After that, you compose them together. And now, if you want 3 videos, 4 videos, you have the component. You just render it with different props, and it's done. You want to change the order, you bring this, you bring that. But essentially, your code is like living within React, inside the components, and this is really important because if you want to edit something, it will not really touch or ruin the other code.
That means like before do a sketch before you start doing something.
Yes, and this habit you should pick it. Writing code should be the easiest part. Solving problem, it's the difficult part. So you should not write code until you have a good idea in mind. So you should not go, I want to sum up numbers. So I go, let's try map. Well, it doesn't work. Okay, I will change I. But I doesn't work. I will change E. No, this is not how you solve problems, because you are just throwing yourself in the middle of problem. The way you should sit far away, just formalize the problem, at least understand it. And whenever you have a good understanding of the problem, okay, so I need to walk through the array, and if the element is less than 5, I need to remove it. Filter does that. So it's a good idea to keep filter. So this is the way you should see problem. Not just okay, this is an exercise. No, it doesn't work like this. Especially in real life, you will have much complex problems that you cannot even carry in your mind. You have fetch, post, list. So it's better to formalize the problem and start decomposing. Okay, I need a component that searches. I need a component that lists posts. I need an individual, and you start and this really gives you a really good and handy. Yeah.
Can we go through
Yeah, sorry.
Can we go through your idea to make this Note app?
Yeah.
And just to, I don't know, put it on the board, just this component, this component, first step should be this.
Yeah. I cannot even delete here, but so the way I will have it is so this is my screen. Some designer in my company built something, and he said we want to have an input here, and we have a button, and we have a list of stuff here. And you type something, you click add, we will have an item. And every time you add, I think it's fine. I'm just writing here, but thank you. So every time you click add button, you add an item here. Okay?
Yes.
And maybe you can have a delete button.
Yeah, then you select an item and delete it.
Yeah, you can just click this and it will delete the item. So the way I will formalize it is okay, I will see it. Okay, clearly I have a header here. Okay? After that, I have a list of items. And each item is a component itself. So I don't repeat the code.
Yeah.
Make sense?
Yes.
And the header has an input and a button. Is it clear?
Yes.
This is how I break up. So I will create a header component, list component, and an item component, and glue them together with props and state to update them. And for example, let's say this is a list. So inside this component, let's zoom in. Inside this component, we have lists. And inside the header, we have an input like this. Okay? So technically, I will put a list of items here. Can you see all of you?
Yes.
I will put a list of items here inside the state. Because whenever I add, I will add an item, so it will re-render it. And whenever I remove, I will remove from the state and it will re-render it. We agree that state, whenever we update it, it will re-render. So if you have an array of 3 items, I change the state and remove 1 item, React will automatically show only 2. And if we add, it's the same thing. This is clear for all of you. So we will have state here. And this component has an input. Whenever we change the input and we put add, we click add, we should go and add something to the state, which is this one, the text. So these components, they need to communicate. True or not?
Yes.
The text from here needs to be appended to the array or
Yes.
pushed to the array. But these are 2 separate components. This cannot change the state of this component.
Yeah.
You agree with me?
Yes.
Yes.
Because as we said before, state is something lived inside the component. You cannot change it from outside.
Yes.
So how are we gonna do it? The way we do it in React, we call it lift the state up. Which means we will have another component, which is this component called up. Okay? It will have the list. Okay? And whenever you add something, you tell the parent, oh, whenever you click button, I want to add something, and the parent will go and add this here.
Okay. So parent is connecting both.
Exactly. So the parent is gluing both. So the list, the state is not here anymore. The state is here. And we change the state here and we pass the new list to this component. So this component will not hold state anymore. It will just receive the list as a props.
Yeah.
And the parent will actually edit and stuff like that. Is this clear or confusing?
I think that for me, it will be clear if I will see the code how.
No, but I'm trying to push you to think. We will write code, but we are trying to think.
Does that
Yeah.
mean like
Abstract the idea.
Yeah.
these two components cannot do it without parent?
Yeah, because they cannot communicate.
Yeah.
It's like
They have both different states, so
it's like you want some. So you are a student from University of Copenhagen, and there's another student from University of Berlin, and they need to communicate. They need to go to the
Student affairs. something.
student affairs or something which is bigger, that relates both universities. And after that, maybe they can even go to the foreign ministry or something.
yeah.
So two components, like the list. This needs a list, which is just an array of strings. Make sense? It's an
Yes.
array of strings. And we have the
It's here.
and we have the header here, which is just an input with the button. I want to be able to click this, get the text from here, put it here. But these are two separate components. So how I'm gonna do that in React? In React, if you have two components and they want to communicate, basically these are sibling components. They are on the same level. This is not inside this and this is not inside this. They are like side by side.
Yes.
You create a parent and you get state out of this and you get state out of this. And the parent will coordinate in between them. You don't need to understand this in a concrete way because we write code, but just to get the idea.
Yeah.
So the list, this list here, we will create another component, and this list will be part of this component.
Yeah.
And whenever you click this, you notify the parent, and the parent will add something to this and pass it again to the chat.
So, what did you say? You're gonna create another list up there? or-
No, you create a higher component like this one.
Okay.
You create a bigger component that coordinates between these two. So now this doesn't have state anymore. You lift the state up.
Yeah.
Okay.
You give the state to a higher component.
Control,
It's
yeah.
like I
Control.
cannot have the responsibility. So you give the responsibility to someone higher than you.
Alright.
So he can actually go and change stuff. So now whenever you change the list here, you pass it again to this component. It's a bit abstract, but I'm just walking you through
Yeah.
the ideas level.
Yeah.
Is it clear?
Yes.
Yeah.
This is called lifting the state up. And for example, if we have another component here that needs to communicate with this,
We should do inside.
we cannot communicate. We create another component that we lift the state up. So we keep lifting the state up until all the component can actually communicate. Because the parent is the only one who's responsible, or the parent is the only component that allows two children to communicate. If children cannot communicate with children. If you want to add this here, tell the parent will do something.
But in this area, for example, if you create this component,
Yeah.
this component is gonna be the sibling at this whole.
Exactly, it's the sibling of this whole component.
Whole component.
It's like a component that should be here.
Okay.
Sibling of all this.
Okay, so, this one will have a parent here, and this one will have a parent.
They will have the same parent.
Yeah.
Because the parent will render two components.
I'm not gonna talk to my sister without my parents.
Yes, because that brings structure. Because if every two components can communicate, it will be a mess.
It's a
Yeah.
good idea.
Like this
otherwise
communicates with
they're
this.
gonna fight.
Exactly. Instead of you communicating with that one and that one, it's like it will be a mess.
Yeah.
But if there is a common parent that abstract and handle all the logic, it will be much better.
At the end of the project, only one state will be there.
No, you will put the state. So, if you have, for example, if this list needs to be collapsed and shown,
Yes. It goes
this
to the
doesn't
parent.
need to go up. No, because why in the first place, why we remove the state from the list and we put it in the up? Because we decided that the up, the header,
They're gonna
is
communicate.
also communicating with the list to add stuff to it.
Yeah.
So because two component needs to touch state, we give it to another component. But this open close to open and close the list.
So it's
No one else
communicating.
wants to edit it, so we can just keep it inside. So you divide and you put your state based on. So you communicate through state. So state will be the communication tool. If two component doesn't communicate, if it's just needed inside here, there is no need to lift it up. You can just keep it here. But if this component needs to control this one, you lift up. This is the idea. You lift up to communicate. Is it clear, Pete, or confusing? Of course, you don't need to understand it in like we will do it, but just like understand it in an abstract way and how you think about it.
Yes.
So let's start.
Sorry, I have a question.
Yeah.
Is it possible during the compile of the React use breakpoint on it?
Uh,
Use breakpoint, same as JavaScript. Line by line,
Yeah.
put breakpoint and check the code. React, is it possible?
Yeah, that's JavaScript, that's not React. You know what I mean? The breakpoint is really so if you put a breakpoint inside this line,
Yeah.
it will pause in this line. There's nothing special about React. Because we told that React will convert to HTML at the end and some event listeners. So you can do breakpoint, console.log, anything you like.
Because it's rendered on the page, HTML page.
Yes.
You must put breakpoint on the browser, not here.
Yeah, of course. But you can actually, if you throw something, you can see here that you can see in the browser there is a render with counter.
Is a breakpoint. True is breakpoint.
You can put a breakpoint here, but I'm just saying throw. I'm just showing you that the browser is running your code normally. It's like not.
This is a stop, and then you can check the previous value.
Yeah,
values of-
like here, like normally you can debug. You can debug like always. You can just go here and let's. So I have a simple empty thing. So the first thing that I will do is create header component. The header will be the input and the add button. Okay?
Yes.
So I will create a new file.
Nice.
One thing, some people prefer to write .js, some people prefer to write .jsx.
What is X?
It's JSX that we discussed last time, JavaScript
Yeah.
XML.
Yeah.
Because this syntax is not valid JavaScript. If you put in, so some people try to label it as JSX, but it's up to you. It still works if you put it as JSX or JS. Up to you. If you see JSX, just understand that it's someone's want to differentiate between normal JavaScript and React files. But it doesn't have anything to do with the code.
name of the file should be the same as company.
That's a good convention, but again, that doesn't have anything to do. Your code will still run and function if you don't have the same name. You can name this hello Yunus. It's up to you. But it's better to give it a meaningful name. So we have header.js and we say import React from React class header extends react.component. Okay,
Render.
we say render, we say return we will return a div with an input. Okay, and a button, and we name the button add. So we export header. So we say export default header, and we import it here. Say import header from. Sorry, it's just next to me, so it's header. We have now the input. Let's give it a placeholder. Add something. Just a placeholder like HTML.
Holder.
Place hold.
Not button.
Oh, we added to the button. Button with a placeholder. Good stuff. Yeah. Good.
Yes.
Yes.
We created the first part. Now we need to create the list component. Okay. So I will go and create the same thing here. List. You can name it wherever you like. List items, list to-dos, list tasks, list wish list. It's naming. It's like your name. You control your name. You can change it. This is the same thing. So import list from list, and we still didn't create any list. So we create a new file. No. List.js. And it's almost like
Error was because of this wasn't created.
with semicolon. You mean semicolon here?
No, you said like import list from list and there was
Oh, so
error,
semicolon is optional in JavaScript. It's optional.
She was saying there was error because error was
Oh no,
this
it's
wasn't created.
list is not created and the file doesn't exist. We just created the file. So we can say class list extends react dot component, and we say render again, and we return a UL. Okay, and the UL is empty because we don't have anything to render. Make sense?
Yeah.
We didn't export default list, because to be able to import it here, you need to export it in this file. Is this clear what I'm doing here? Like importing, exporting? For all of you.
What's that default?
Default means I can just so I can name this my list. Default means it will not have a name. You can just import it straight away. But if it's not default, you need to do this. Like you should see it from React. React here is export default from the React package. So if you go to the React code, React is a default export. So you can just import it without referencing any name. You can just say React, you can say test, it doesn't matter. But component is named. So if you say export list like this, you need to say import list.
Without from
What?
from list.
Import list from list. Or you can say import list 2, but you need to name it here list 2.
Exact name.
Yeah, the exact name. It's not a default export, it's a named export. But when you say export default,
Then it will take the file name, right?
no, it doesn't do anything with the file name. The file name is important here. This doesn't need to do anything with the file name. This has stuff to do with the export. The file name is important here, not here. Okay? But if we say export default list, we can say here list or list2 or wherever we like, because it's a default export. Make sense? Or it's a bit confusing.
Still.
Default doesn't need to have a name.
So why do you have the other list?
Sorry?
Export default list.
Yeah, because I'm exporting defaulting this class. If I will have another class here,
So where is that list referring to? The list after default.
It's
This one?
referring to the class.
it's referring to this class.
Okay.
And
If you
this,
have two class, what do you do?
if you have, for example, class test. Okay, let's say you have class test.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot say export default test. Why? Because you cannot have two default exports. You can only have one default export.
So in that case, then you should only say export text.
You can export it like this,
Okay.
and it will be named, and you will be able to do import list, which is the default one, and after that import the test, the named one. So here you list the names inside. It's like this, inside curly braces. It has a specific name, and this is the same thing. And this is for the default.
So you can have only one default and
A lot of-
multiple,
yeah.
Name.
So can you change the test here?
No,
You can't change it.
you cannot, because here it's exported using a named export. But this is a default. Because there is only one default, so I can name it wherever I like. I can go and name this list 25, 24. Because it's a default export. But named, no, I need to specify the exact name. Is it clear a bit?
You can use us also.
Yeah, you can use as, that's to rename. You can say test as, that's if you want to change the name, but that's out of scope. Good?
Yes.
Yeah.
Recording.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm doing. So if I will type 5, I'll just type randomly 5 just to see, yeah, we have 5 here. So now we have two components.
Now
Clear?
we want to talk.
We want them to talk, like proper siblings. And before really like letting them talk, we need to start like just putting. So here I will put a random list. I will pass it an array straight away. Test 2. Good? Just passing a random
Yeah.
array.
Yes.
Just remember, this is just normal array. I can create a variable here and put it there. I can say const a make sense?
Yeah.
It's an array. I can loop through it here. I can say const. I can say items is the better name. I can say const destructor from this dot props. I will take the items. Is it clear?
Yeah.
And I will say here items dot map. Give me one item, and I will say li item.
Yep.
No, just put item here because it's just text.
Yes.
Make sense?
Yeah.
And here I will have test 1 and test 2. Is it clear how we got
Yeah.
this?
Yep.
Just we passing an array and we are looping through the array here. Now we want to go and have a header. Whenever we click the button, we want to change this list.
Yes.
And if we change this list, this will re-render. But to be able to change this list and this component will re-render, we need to put it inside state.
Yeah.
Because as we said before, if we want to edit something and our component re-render because of that, state is the best candidate for that. Is it clear?
Yeah.
We don't care how header will communicate, but we are just building a bit. So now we need to move this to a state.
Yes.
Okay. So I will do this. I will say state equal state. I will say items. Make sense? And now I will say this dot state dot items. Nothing happens. Just we move the variable to another place. Clear for all of you? And we can do destructuring. We can say const equal this dot state. Okay? So now we have items and we can put it here. We can change the name of this one. We don't need to have the same name here, you know, because this is just the value. This is the key, so we can access it inside this component with props. Yeah, so that's the first step. The second step is we want the header to be able to, but before, we want the method so we can actually add something to the array. We want that. So when you click the button, we add something to the array.
Add item.
Yeah, that's really good name. Add item. And we said we use an arrow functions.
Yeah.
And this will say const. I'll do the same way I did it before, which is so new list or new items equal this dot state dot. I will just say concat first, and someone will pass me something.
Yeah.
You'll say value or new value. New item. New item. New item, and I will say concat new items. That will copy the first items and add to it the new item, and I will have new items. I can just name it items, as you like. Now I would say it's this dot set state items new item. Clear?
Yeah.
And the way I use it, I just call it with the string, and it will add it to the list. That is clear.
Yes.
So we need somewhere to actually add this, or call this one. We need, when we click the button, we need to call this method. So who's responsible for calling this method? Is the header button.
Header.
Yeah.
So whenever we say on click here, we need to some way get that function and put it here.
This.
We cannot use this because this refers to this class,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and the other one is defined in the other class. So we need to establish a communication. But before establishing communication, you need to see the nature of these two components. So we have the app component, and it's rendering a header.
Yeah.
This is true. So it's a parent-child protocol. It's parent-child. So the child needs a function from the parent. How are we gonna do that?
Props.
Extends.
Props.
Props.
Because props can pass anything to a child,
Child,
including functions.
Yes.
Yes.
So we can pass arrays, functions, because function is just a value. You can carry a function in a variable and anything. Make sense? Is this clear what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
A parent can give any props to a child, including functions. So if we go to header, I will say add item. It's a function.
Yes.
Or we can be clever and we can say button click handler. It's a super large name,
Yeah.
but just to be more specific,
Yes.
it's a button click handler. And we wanted to take the value of this. Could just name it click handler. Because of course you will click a button, you will not click a div. Well, you can, but this is clear
Yes.
that we are passing something. So this could be a string, this could be an array, this could be a function. Is this clear or like because it's
Yeah,
confusing
yeah.
a bit
Yeah.
sometimes? Please stop me anytime if it doesn't make sense. And here, let's remove this. Let's console.log props. This dot props.
It gives the everything that the parents have.
So you can see that we have here, this is the props. It's an object. And it has a key called click handler. And it's a function.
Yeah.
Why? Because here I passed a function as the click handler key.
Yes.
This is clear.
Yes.
Awesome. So now if I will say I can destructure it, I can say const this dot props. How did I name it? Click handler. This is clear?
Yeah.
I'm getting the click handler from the props because I passed it through the parent. And I can say on click click handler.
This.
Why everybody is like
We understood, but we can't.
We cannot
Remember
like make it
again.
sit in the brain.
Of
Yeah,
course,
understood.
you need-
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
like, you know.
Yeah,
it's
yes.
good,
You cannot assign a place right now. Actually.
It's like yeah, you pass a function as a value. It's like what? Yeah, I understand. I understand. But this is clear. At least like the concept
Yeah.
Yeah.
Concept is clear.
that we are passing a function to a props like anything else, and we are grabbing it and we are assigning it as an on-click. Imagine that this just a function that it's defined here. It doesn't matter where it's. You call a function here. It doesn't matter where it's coming from. Props inside the class. It's not. Make sense?
Yes.
But we need the key information here. We need when we add this, when we add the button, or click the button, like this.
We need stage yet. So.
I did yeah. Did you see the breakpoint that we did before?
Yeah.
We did the breakpoint before. Now it's stopping. But yeah. It's failing because of a reason. We will see why it's failing. But now even if we click the button, it doesn't do anything because we need to get the text input from the input and adding it. But we are not doing that anywhere.
Yeah.
That's really important. So we have technically it's a form. If we think about it, it's a form with an add button. If we think about it,
Yeah.
it's a form with the add button. Okay, and this is the input, and the input has some text value. The way usually we handle text or we handle inputs in React is by keeping it inside the state. Because until now, so just to explain something really fast. An input component, fancy input component. So an input component, when you type in it and stuff, it's doing a lot of stuff inside. It's waiting for your keyboard event. Like it's simple, but if you think about it, it's sort of complex. Because it's keeping text, and every time you type a character, it will add it to the text. But you don't care about that. No one cares. It's an input, you type it. In React, we care. Why we care? Because this input can hold really complex logic. You can, for example, if you go to Netflix or something, you type your credit card, needs to be validation on the input.
Yeah.
The input can, for example, not allow you to type if you're not an admin. A simple input can have many meanings and can be really complex in a complex application. In Facebook, for example, when you type, it will like make more space for the text and stuff. It's quite complex. So an input itself is simple. If you need an input, it's just an input. But usually when we build the complex application, which is React meant for, we don't want the input to have its own value. What we want is
restrict it.
We have a value, this string. We pass it to the input, and whenever the input change, we wait for the input to change. We update the value and we pass the value again. So if you so initially v, it's an empty string.
Yeah.
An input is an empty string. We agree about that.
Yes.
If you type A, we detect that there is typing happening. We go to this string, we add the character that it was typed, which is A,
And then go back.
and pass it again. It will show A. So it's not showing A because it's waiting for the keyboard. It's showing A because we are updating the value here. So we can, for example, block it if it's more than 10 characters, or do a lot of complex logic behind updating it. But essentially, we are getting the value out of the input. We're not keeping the value inside the input anymore. We keep it outside. Now you will not get lower benefits from doing that. But as you are building complex applications, it will really benefit you.
Okay.
And also, one more thing is keeping the input here, or keeping the value. So traditionally, you would say input. So let's say this has an ID. You say get element by ID, you get the input, and you say input.value. This is how you do it.
Yes.
That means everywhere you will need the input value, you need to say get element by ID. It's like your application would be like get element by ID, and if for example you are in another page and that input doesn't exist anymore, you say get element by ID, it will break. But anyways, we want our logic to not be dependent on the DOM, like we are doing now. We have a lot of logic. The DOM only has listeners and stuff. So it's really important to take the value out and give the value to the input. So the input will be just a consumer of our value, instead of the input holding the value itself. I know it's a bit difficult because it's not like a no-brainer task, but I'll try to do it with you. So traditionally, we will have we need state. Okay, and this state, let's say we say input value.
Yes.
Make sense?
Yeah.
Start with empty. After that, let's say change input change handler. It's a function. Empty. So every time we type in the input, the change will be called and we update the input. So we say this dot state dot set state, sorry. Set state. We change input value to be something, to be the new state of the input. Wherever we are typing, we update this one. How we do that? We say on change this just to remove this, sorry for this. So we call this every time the input change.
Yes.
Is this clear?
Yeah.
We will see it in practice, but is it clear? Every time we change the input, we call this function. And on change, it's like when you have like a click event, or mouse event, or keyboard event, you will get passed, when you say add event listener, you get passed an E, or you call it E, it's an event.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's the same thing here. So if this, we call this our function, it will give us an event. Okay?
Okay. Yes.
And from the event, we can say const new text is e dot target dot value.
Yes.
You remember this?
Yeah.
This is done. So this is the new text that we typed, and we change the input value to be the new text.
Yes.
Okay?
Yeah.
And that value, we will pass it to this input. So I will just use the structure in here. I will say const this dot state we can just do destructuring and we say input value. And we give it as a value here. So we give it a value, which is our new value, and every time we change the value. Let's see if this works. Maybe, we don't know. It works. But you will tell me we did all this, the input already did do all
It's
this.
the same.
It's the same. We already had this. Why we're like doing all this thing? Well, the smart thing about this is we are not dependent on the input anymore. What does it mean? If I want to access what's the current value of the input, I don't need to go to the DOM. I don't need to go to HTML. I already have it inside a variable available for me. So my code will not be a mix of query selectors with some functions. No. If I have a method here, let's say test. So let's say the what? No, please.
This is testing. Test all the methods.
Does your computer work?
Yeah, mine works. Okay. Yeah, cool. So if I want to, for example, console.log if I want to see the value of my input inside my component, inside the method, I don't need to say like, oh, give me this input and take the value from it. I can just say console.log this dot state dot input value. Make sense? Do you think it's worth it to do it this way, or it's too much?
No, it depends upon like how are we gonna use this input value if we are using it this way.
Precisely, like it depends. That's the answer.
Yeah.
If you are building a website, there is no point in doing this.
Yes.
Just like,
exactly.
but if you are building web application, or like for example, like you have like errors, and you allow the user to edit and stuff,
Okay.
that can be like a lot of stuff happening. So it's better to extract it here, and you will not be dependent on the input itself. The input can even disappear. You can even have, for example, like Gmail. You can, for example, like write an email. After that, like leave the email, go to somewhere else. When you come back, it's still there.
Yeah.
Because the value is not handled by the input. Even if the input will disappear, we don't care. It's already in my state. You navigate through the app, you return back, it's there. You get the idea? So when you start building more complex applications, not websites, applications, that has like a lot of interactive state and stuff, this will come really handy. So I advise you to stick with this pattern. And technically it's the only pattern, because like if you go with any React application, they will not allow you to do the other part. We are good. Yeah. So now, instead of calling this click handler, that it's coming from props, I will say this dot. So I will name this add item. But this item is in the header, not in the app. Okay,
Yeah.
this is a local add item, or we can say just name it method. You can say this dot method. Actually, why we are doing this? Because now we can just do this. This dot props. What did the parent pass to me? Click handler is the same as this click handler. Confusing. I can sense the confusion.
this like click handler is, right now we are in header, so this click handler is coming from app.
Yeah, const input value.
We should change the function name.
Yeah.
But it's an intended like confusion, like liar. I'm confused. I'm trying to confuse you. No, just with the naming, so you can.
Great.
No, so you can differentiate between the functions. That even this one and this one are called the same, but this is defined inside the class itself, and this is coming from props.
Yeah.
Okay. So we can call this add item, and go here and name this add item. Okay.
Yeah, makes sense.
Everybody's like, what? Is it clear?
Now we have two
The concept is clear.
item methods in app
What do you mean?
in index.
What?
We have two add items.
No, we have only this is add item
Yeah.
is coming from the parent, which is this one.
This is in the app actually.
This is in the app. I'm passing it to a header.
Yeah. So in the header it's going like as a
Okay,
props.
yeah.
So
Please follow. Please follow. Please. I know it's difficult, but it needs practice.
yeah, I like it. The concept is clear, but
That's really important. That's the important thing. So we have add item here. We pass it to the header.
yeah.
In the header, we can create a custom function that calls our add item.
Yes.
We have like a handful of errors. So we can now add to the. You can see if I will type a test, or say I will. I can add it to the list. How that is happening? If we can decompose the logic.
Actually, we are putting him in input in the header, and then we are passing it to the parent app,
Yeah.
and the app is then passing to the list.
Precisely.
So
Precisely. So the parent, the header, is calling a function provided by the parent to like notify him, or notifying it, that the button was clicked and you should add an item. So the parent app is providing a function to the header. The header is picking the function here, but before we have a button that has a click handler, and the click handler, it's a function of course that takes the current input value and call the function provided by the parent, which is this add item, which is this add item. And essentially that function is just getting a new string and adding it to the
Pin drop silence.
yeah, people are like looking at me. I will kill him after class.
Can you explain again?
Yeah, of course. I don't know if Zoe has a better explanation than me.
You can do it again and see.
Okay. Okay. So we have the parent holds the state, which is the list, and also has a function that you can call it to add an item. Is this clear?
Yes.
This is really important. We have state and we have a function to add something to that state, to the list. This is clear.
yes.
So this function is the key. With this function, we can edit everything. If we call this function, we can add state to the parent. So we take this function and we pass it to the child.
Yes.
Until here, it makes sense?
Yeah.
We pass it to the child. The child has a button. And the button has a click handler. And that click handler is taking the input value, the current input value, and calling the function provided by the parent, which is the function that adds something to the array.
Which part is not clear?
It's on the
flow, how we
For me, it will be clear when I Google.
Next investigation.
Okay.
Can you make a little visual, with the background?
I can
Yeah.
draw if you want. I will use the whiteboard every time.
Yeah, with these names.
Aha.
Yeah, of course.
So naming?
we get confused by these odd items. Prevention.
You remember this, the parent and stuff
Yes.
that you
Yeah.
communicate? It's the same thing, but now it's practical with code. It's like, don't talk, show me the code. It's by Linus Torvald, famous code. Talk is cheap, show me the code. Yeah, we are good. Sorry for putting trash next to you. It's not meant to be like that.
It's not a trash, it's
Yeah, it's science. It's absorbing the whole science. If you eat it, you eat the component. So yeah. So we have a component called app. Okay.
Yeah.
This is the app component.
Yeah.
It's rendering a header. Okay.
Yeah.
And it's rendering
List.
list. And so this is the normal structure. If we take the red pen, we can draw the border of the states and stuff. So this one has a state, which is the input.
Yep.
So we can say it has a state, it's an input. Input value. Okay? So the input value holds wherever we are typing.
Yes.
Remember that. Every time we type, it will change. So, and so yeah, this is the thing. And this component app has also a state, which is to-dos, or items. This is
Yes,
true.
yeah.
The app component has items, which is an array of items.
Yes.
It also has a function called add item. Sorry for it's smaller a bit, but I hope it's clear where I'm writing for some extent. And this add item is passed to header. Header has a button
Yes.
with a click handler. That click handler will grab this value
Yes.
and call this add item from the
Yes,
parent
yeah.
and add the value to it. And this add item is responsible for adding one input value.
Yes.
And add items is also passed to the list. So whenever this add item will change by the add item, the list will grow because we are adding
Yes.
more items.
So this add item is the common function which can be passed on this sender and this sender as well?
Yeah, but we don't need to handle it here because there is no buttons here or anything. But we need here to add the button. So whenever we click the button, a button has a click handler
They will grab the value.
that will grab the input value coming from the input and call the add item. How it's calling the add item? Because add item was passing to it. But we say this dot props dot add item, and that add item inside it, it's editing the array. And that array, when it will be edited, because we call set state, React will re-render and pass the new values, which is the new array. So instead of having two items here, we have a third item because React will re-render again. Is this clear?
Yes.
Yes.
I have a question.
Yeah, of course.
And now I'm confused where we should use this dot state and where
You can
this
see here
dot
that-
props.
You can see here we have state here and we have state here.
Yes.
That was intentional to draw that this input is not used here.
Yeah.
So we'll put it here. But if this input is actually used inside the app, I will push it back and I will have two things here. I will have input items and input value.
Okay.
But because it's not needed anywhere,
It's just.
I'm just putting it here.
There are just two, like two now.
There's two states.
One
States
is
for the
here.
header and state for the app. List doesn't have state.
Because there's nothing changing.
Yeah, it's not changing over time.
And,
The
okay.
parent is changing and passing the new list. So the list is only re-rendered.
Okay, and what, you know, this, what is this dot props?
So this dot prop, so for in this component, this dot props means the add item. So props in this one, I can do better at this. I can use my drawing skills. So this is the header. Okay? So we can say state and props. Okay?
Yeah.
State is input file. Props is object
With a function.
and item, which is a function.
The props is always a function.
No, because
object.
because the parent.
But this add item is a method inside
Yes.
app.
So
inside app, yeah.
so it's just I cannot draw properly. I need graphics. So this this component has state. It doesn't have props because no one is passing anything to app. App is the entry point. This component doesn't have props, but it have instance properties. So it has add item. Okay, which is a function. Make sense?
Yes.
Which is we call it this. So this is state. This is props. This is
Method.
PR or methods. Thank you. It's a better name. It's a property. It's a method. So this component is passing this method to this component. So technically, this will be the props of this one. Is this clear?
Yes.
Yes.
And list.
Hmm?
List.
And list has state, nothing.
Yeah.
It doesn't. Props, it's it's the list. So you can see that this list here, this items, sorry. Items, it's coming from here.
That means the child can only get what the app is giving it.
Of course, because the
So-
parent decide what to pass to the child.
Yeah.
It's like you call a function, you can call it with A, B, you decide. So who's using the component, which is the parent, can decide. So we are rendering two components. To this component, we are giving a method as prop. And to this component, we are giving piece of state as a
Yeah.
prop.
This.
Is it clear or not?
Yes.
So you can combine, for example, this can actually receive both of them, or something like that. You are not limited to pass only that item. We can pass another prop here. Is it clear?
Yeah.
I feel that it's not clear for some reasons.
It will be
Do
clear.
you have better explanation, Zoe? I don't know.
So, I just want to ask, so you said it's clear, so who can tell me what's the difference between props and state?
States gives the data to props.
State
but
is.
props.
State is current.
It's one direction.
Let's
State
say,
is
just take one component,
If you would
for
like
one
to-
Yeah.
component.
If you would
State
like-
is something that a component holds to its own, and props is something a parent can give it to a child.
Mhm.
So props can
Yes.
pass between the
Correct.
components. It can connect between parent and child.
Mhm.
But the state is every component has its own. So
I
And
think
what's
it-
the purpose of state? Why not using normal variables?
actually, then it does re-render every time when
Precisely. So a state is a way to actually tell React to re-render.
you.
It's like your state inside, it changes
Whenever
over
the
time.
state is changed, whenever the state is gone, 0 to 1 or 1 to 0, it re-renders.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So whenever you change the state, React will re-render again.
That's
Like
why,
we draw, it will add a virtual DOM, like all the boarding
that's
steps.
why we are using set state.
Yes.
as a for rendering.
Exactly. We want this component when we add item to display the new list. So we change the list
Yeah.
to re-render here.
And prop is,
Prop is can someone that was a really good question. Can someone actually, except you already explained it. Can someone else explain the?
We agree with her
She-
explanation.
Okay,
Yeah,
can you repeat what she said?
prop is prop is something passed from the parent.
As a property, like normal
Properties.
properties, when you say like, prop is properties.
Prop is actually the communication from sibling to sibling through parent.
Not necessarily.
No.
That's an edge case. But prop is like when you render a component, the parent will render a component. Up will render header. So up has a chance to pass information to header. Those information are called props. So props is something passed from parent
To a child.
to a child, also children.
So one is foreign, that being passed down. One is local, state is local. So I, as a component, I can have my own state, but then I also can receive props
Some say,
from my parent. Is that more clear? Fine. Move on. And if anybody who still doesn't understand, ask her.
So yeah, exactly. So we will see a warning here. Each child in a list should have a unique key. What does that mean? So here we are rendering a list. What I mean by list, it's a dynamic items. It's dynamically generated. It's not like we are hard coding li. No, it's a dynamic list. React needs a key. Why it needs a key? Because remember the how React does the job of updating the stuff. So if you have a list item, if you have a list of items, so you have the, let's say we have an app, okay, and the app, or we can say the list. I'm trying to put average as possible. So list or item or something. Looks like a bunny. So we have item and we have another item. When you click the button and you add an item to the list, this list component will receive new prop because we changed. We had an old 2 items, now we have 3 items. So React technically needs to add a new item here.
Yeah.
But it's not that easy because you can actually, this can change the order. For example, you can delete this. So it will be this, and so let's say you add a new item. It's easy. We can add it here. Let's say you delete this item. React needs to wait because this will be the second.
Yeah.
Not this will be so the second. So this will replace this one. So React needs a way to know exactly which component was deleted and which component are still present. So it can update the browser in a better way. And this is where the key prop. So each component that is dynamic, you pass a key to it. You say key equal 1, key equal 2, equal 3. So when you delete this component, React will know that the second item was deleted. So third will be second, but React will know that third, it was third before. So it's just a way for React to know exactly how to handle lists. And also it's really important for React that React will know exactly how to, so instead of like deleting everything and adding everything again, React will be smart. Oh, 3 was deleted, we just delete 3 because it has a key. So key is a unique identifier to each element inside the list. That's how we should get it. And most of the time, it doesn't matter if you put the key or not, but there is edge cases where the key can actually cause bugs in your application. So yeah. So what's the dynamic item here? It's the li.
Yeah.
Okay. So we need to add a key to the li. Okay.
Yes.
and what's the value of the key. Well, usually in real applications, you will have, like, if you have an items, you will probably save them in the database,
Yeah.
and the database will have an ID. So you can actually grab that ID and put it as a key, because the key should be something unique.
So do you need to add state key?
Yeah, we can do that. We can now go along with hacking it, or we can do whatever we like. But it's better to put a stable thing. So because if you put the index like 1, 2, 3, 3 would become 2. React will be confused.
Yes.
Because we deleted 2 and 3 was 3 before, but because deleted the second, 3 will be 2. It's like, what happening? So we need to have, for example, like if the first one has an ID 1, 1, 1, 1, and the second one has ID 2, 2, 2, 2, and third one has ID 3, 3, 3, 3, ID okay. We delete the second, we still have like 1, 1, 1, 1, 3, 3, 3, 3. So 3, 3, 3, 3 will be second, because React will know that we need to delete 2, 2, 2. So even that the position of 3, 3, 3 is second now, but React still know that it was 3 before, so it will not confuse the information. It will not render the first item as the second and the second as the first. It's like, I don't know if Zoe has a better explanation again of this, but
I think you did quite well.
Okay.
Anybody doesn't understand?
Everything is understood.
cool. So
are you gonna assign the keys here? Or
so we need the key, and I will change this to be an object, honestly, so it will have a key.
Yeah.
So I will say text test1 test2. Okay.
Yes.
And we were adding a new item here. We were adding just text. Now we need to add an object instead of
Yes.
text.
Yeah.
So the way we'll put ID. Let's say just name it ID. Let's say ID 1. ID 2. It's sort of a unique ID. Make sense? So here now the new item should not be just an object like this. We would say new item text here, because this is just the text. We say const new item. It's an object. No, sorry, new item. So we would say text is like this. So we need to have, is it clear what I'm doing?
Yeah.
Please follow with me.
Yes.
So we need an ID now. So we need to say ID, wherever it's here the last, we take we increment by 1.
Okay. Yeah.
Make sense?
Yes.
We can do it in, so we can say the last item. Yeah, but that will be problematic.
Yeah, you're making it more complicated than
Yeah, it was,
Just use 1, 2.
okay, but if I will use 1,
But
2,
I
I'm
still-
afraid
I
that you
still
will understand that index can be also used
No,
as
but
1,
I
2.
still want to
No,
see this one.
we can explain this.
Okay, so let's say
I would like to see this one. Like, how do you concatenate then with ID?
the way I will concatenate it is I will get the last element.
Yeah.
So I will say state.items, this.state.items, and I will take the last one, length -1. It will give me the last one.
Last number, and then you add.
And I will remove the ID. I will move the split by dash.
Yes.
So to remove the first and take that number and add 1 to it and construct string again.
Okay.
You don't need to get that, this is-
structure of the data.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then there's is adding more complexity.
Yeah,
here.
which is like it's not needed for you. Again, we want to understand React, not how to construct IDs and it's like this is. But thank you for that. So now we need an ID. 2. We cannot just put 3. So the way I will do it, I will say const last item. ID is this dot state dot items of.
And then
I need to repeat all.
Then
-1.
Is this clear?
Yeah.
We're getting the this dot items.
.id.
Yeah, I will just in a bit. But we are taking the items, and we are taking the last
Last
item because we're saying length -1,
Yeah.
and we can say dot id. +1.
Yes.
This is clear?
Yeah.
Just taking the last item, which is 2, add 1 to it, and put it as the new ID. Honestly, I don't know if that works. Probably it will. And so now item, it's not just item. It's item.text. And we have item.id.
Yep.
Because it becomes... React now is not complaining about... so let's try it out. Let's say test tree. Yeah. If we see React, up, list, we have key 1, 2, 3. So if we delete now this one, React will know that the middle one was deleted.
And the keys will remain 1 and 3. Yes?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So React will know that which item is deleted, which item is added.
Yes.
This can cause bugs actually. So it's pretty important to do it.
Whereas if you use index here, then the number will
Then it
change.
should change.
That will
Yeah, because it will be 1, 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
that will
So,
confuse React.
and you in the first place. It will confuse you. So, any questions about this? I see people kind of confused. Like React without key.
Explain your confusion.
Exactly. Explain to me. Well, yeah, we need to explain the homework. But before, do you have questions?
Can you
So
send
far.
it
Hmm?
put it in Slack?
Yeah, I will. I will share it with you. No questions? Are you sure? You understand?
Right now we are. I think we don't know what after going to home.
You have to sit down and absorb it.
Okay.
Map it in the.
While you're doing the homework, you probably will see that you don't understand.
Yeah.
And then
But that's a good thing.
the video from there.
Yeah, exactly.
Homework. Smooth one.
We still don't have the homeworks for the new.
It's not merged.
It's merged, but we don't have homeworks with the new structure. I'm
Mm.
using the homework for the old structure. Someone promised that he will do it, and I don't have time to do it honestly.
In that case, we can post the homework later.
Yeah, I can just post it now. I can give you the homework from the last thing because it's not that different. The teaching is different. Should the homework be difficult or easy?
In between.
We cannot say anything right now. Maybe you can start with the easy one and give the difficult one.
What we discussed in the class is okay.
The homework will be difficult.
We were just asking for courtesy.
But I will yeah, exactly. It's like I'm showing you that we have democracy, but if you are against me, we don't have it anymore. It's like we have democracy if you agree. If you don't, there is no democracy. That's the point of democracy. But yeah, according to me, of course. Which if you if you disagree,
Global.
if you disagree, yeah.
Maybe send this link to.
I will, but I need to explain it first.
Yes.
So homework week 2. So in the first week we just created the list. That was just an easy task to get comfortable with React and creating components. Now we will start the serious work. So you would have this is the JSON format, but just forget about JSON. But it's sort of JSON format. So your list, instead of having just text, it will be like this: objects of ID, description, which is like I called it text, and you will have done, and done is true or false. It's like the task is done or not. So there is this is nothing to do with JSON, but it's just saying that this is the JSON description. So the UI will be like this. You will enter description. You will add like the way this almost the same way we did it, and you will add an item to the list. Okay. And yeah, and if there is no items, you will say no items. So when you load the app for the first time, it will be no items because it's empty. This is like in case if you have 3. And you will have also so instead of having this checkbox, you will have the delete button. I will edit the task to follow that thing because like this is a bit difficult to do, honestly. So you will have a button next to each task. If you click it, you delete it, which is another method on the parent app that will
Does
actually.
that mean like when we add a new item in the list, we also add a button at the same time, delete button?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
precisely. And that button will have the click handler coming from the parent to remove
Yeah.
from the list.
Yes.
I already said it all. You just need to code it. Okay?
Yes.
So either you go with this one, you can check items and then check them. When you check it, it will go line. So when you check item, when this will be true, you add the CSS class name, line true, you know, or you remove it.
I
if
would,
it-
I would first go with the delete.
Yeah.
And when I'm done, I would like try.
So it's optional. Either you have like the delete or the check button. Do you want to add anything to it?
I don't know how to do that, but it sounds easy.
That's clever. That's really clever. I don't know, but it sounds easy.
It sounds easy.
Do you-
But like before you start doing it, like Yunus said, just start doing in your head how you want to do it, step by step. Because I forgot to say, but that is very important for you to communicate your solution first to yourself. I mean, for now, because in the future, when you are like looking for a job, going for interviews, or even in the real work, you're going to be asked to do that. So either interviewer is going to ask you, so okay, let's do a pair programming, and then you're going to actually speaking out whatever that is going on in your mind, and or in your real work, you're going to do it with your colleagues. So practice it now till later. I mean, better than later. Okay.
So you can see here there is an extra assignment. Add delete feature to your to-do list so you can delete to-do items. As we said, there is a button here next to each item to delete it. Or you can go with this checking items, which is changing the false and true here in done. As you like. One of them. If you want to be really good, do them both. That's like even better. But remember, either you do the delete or the checkbox. That's the requirements for the homework. It's not clear from here because this is an old format, but so I will pass it here. Sorry? Yeah, of course. It's already like 4. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, see you next week. Sorry.
4 hours.
And the first code as well.
What?
The first code that you did. Can you put that one?
The first one we already had.
Yeah, the
second
second
one
one.
Code sandbox link.
Yeah, of course.
In case you forgot it. And if you are so good that you finish even the bonus homework, try to style it a bit. Because you either do it now or you're going to do it in the future.
I don't know, but it feels like today the 4 hours were really long.
I also did this homework.
Yeah, you did it like